Okay. Wow. All right. Well, welcome to the flail episode. The first of many,
Well,
probably.
I mean, I think what we're going to probably end up talking about a lot is what it feels like to close out a very long cycle.
Ooh.
And it feels like flailing.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
think you nailed it. You flailed it. You nailed it.
A galactic herd of KKs
invites you to Space Cats Happy Hour.
Let your mind relax. We meet in a dimension outside of time,
Where the playfully curious thrive.
so go on, fill your tin cup chalice with the sacred elixir of creativity. Laugh till you breathe violet flame at the theme's absurdity. And above all, let out your full-throated song with us.
Here at Space Cats Happy Hour, with the galactic herd of KKs.
Welcome to Space Cats Happy Hour, the podcast where two KK aliens in human meat suits talk about Ascension and the crazy ass weeks we've had. And all the shit that just comes to our brains. You're in for a real treat, guys, because we have been flailing a little bit. Flailing. At least American KK has been. And this is American KK talking. And I'm with my lovely, wonderful, fabulous co-host, Canadian KK.
Hi, that was me meowing. No, it was my baby. She introduced herself right at the right time.
Fistique could be our other galactic KK person. Cat. I don't know. Fuck this shit.
Oh, she's galactic, all right. Come sit on my lap and stop squawking. She's gonna join. Maybe she'll transmit some healing purrs. She's really good with the healing purrs into this episode.
I'm all about that. Yeah, we are. This episode, we kind of came into this episode a little bit. We usually have at least an outline of what we're going to talk about, but we've both had a couple of weeks here, and in particular, this last week, we are recording on October 29th, so this past week has been a little bit much, and so we're just kind of winging it right now, and whatever we end up talking about is what we're supposed to talk about. So kind of bear with us as we get into whatever it is we're going to be talking about. A lot of energy stuff. We're going to talk about dreams, probably. I think we were kind of interested in talking about some of that stuff that we've both been having, and then we'll see how it goes from there. But yes, who gives a shit? Let's talk about dreams. Canadian KK, take it away.
I started finally having interesting dreams again after a long period of very boring subconscious purging dreams. So I just wanted to bring this one to the table because I want to hear your thought. Now I'm just reading it because I don't remember. It was 6 days ago. So it was on October 23rd. I had this dream, which was that I was watching a new reality TV show that everyone was really into. It was kind of like Love Island. I actually don't really know anything about Love Island. In my dream, I was kind of rolling my eyes at it, but then I caught some of the first episode and it seemed entertaining. Everyone was dressed up as a refrigerator and they had to make their own costume, and they were maneuvering around this shared house space that they lived in together and getting like stuck. So that's what cracked me up originally. I was like, why do they have to be dressed as refrigerators? And then I think there might have been an aspect where they had to eliminate each other, and they were all in a couple, but they were all pansexual, so everybody could mix with each other. And then I spent the next dream thinking about other layers to that show dream that had a deeper meaning. So then in the other dream, I was like, okay, so each couple was from a different time stream. So I say time stream now. I don't know why. It came to me in one of my sessions, specifically time streams. So now I talk about time streams. each couple was from a different time stream, and they were bringing all these time streams into the same reality. And because they were all locked up together in the reality show format, they couldn't talk to anyone from back home. It made them pay less attention to their current reality outside the show. So it made that possible for that to shift more easily while they were occupied with the show. And then they were co-mingling time streams with the couple swaps. And then the refrigerator part was that maybe each of them was preserving some aspect of their own time stream.
Oh.
So I was like, okay, that has to
interesting.
have something to say about something.
This is actually making me think of how I'm starting to sort of understand, or at least try to understand, what feels like this entire year of like, oh, we're about to get started. Oh, never mind. Oh, we're about to get shot out of the cannon. Oh, never mind. Like that whole thing. And to me, it feels like, how do I say this? It's like people are waking up, and I don't know how to, okay. We know that there's a plan, but the plan that can be changed. And a lot of times we don't even really, right now, nobody knows what the fuck is happening. Like the plan is kind of out the window, but there's still kind of a plan. So what it feels like to me is that either people are waking up in bigger waves and at faster speeds than maybe was necessarily anticipated. Like it's a good thing, but it was kind of, here we are on one time stream, and then we're about to kind of move forward with that time stream. And then like this other wave of people wakes up. So we go back into the time stream and kind of like add in all these other awake people from their time stream that have added to the current time stream. So it's kind of like we're gestating a new time stream together. And just as we're about to give birth to this new time stream, it's like, oh, wait, there's a whole other group of people who's waking up. Let's bring them in and we can make an even better time stream. So we're just like continually in this like gestation process where it gets better and better and better, but it's like we're unraveling what could have been fine and we're making it better by like adding in braids of other higher time streams that are even better than what we were expecting. And I don't know why that dream is making me think that, because I think because you said time streams and like people were coming in from different time streams, and it's like we're coming in together into this Love Island room or whatever, and we're eliminating the shit that doesn't work from the time stream that we were about to birth, because like there's a bunch of other ideas from other time streams that have come online with these new wave of people that are coming online. So we're preserving what makes sense and what will actually be even better. I don't know, that was my initial thought, but I want to sit with that one for a minute.
And I wondered like the couple
thing. Yeah.
If it's just, it sounds very like heterocentric, but like just the masculine and feminine energy coming together, you know, like, but without actually having that be gendered into people.
Right.
Just like whatever, the electric magnetic energies coming together.
Yes. Of making that bigger and better time stream is because more and more people are becoming more balanced, and so they're able to bring in the masculine, feminine energy. So I feel like whatever is about to be birthed is it's still going to change. Like we got our Saturn and Pluto really making us look at society right now. So it's not like we're going to give birth tomorrow, but it feels like something is about to just really move some stuff forward. And whatever that is just like getting, like the feminine is being healed, the masculine is being healed with all these other people waking up. And so they're adding that healing into this time stream that we're birthing. And it's when it finally does get birthed, it's not the final one that's going to get birthed, but it's going to push us forward a little bit more to feeling like, oh, I see how we can actually have a stronger foundation of the outline for how we're really going to move into like 2027 or whatever.
Ooh, I love that.
That was a cool dream, KK. Damn. refrigerators though, it cracks me up.
It was very silly.
I wish I had been in there because that's hilarious.
Yeah, like the costume party aspect of it. I think that was a nice thing too, was it was like silly. Because I was like, oh, I'm watching this reality show. I know those are like, the formula. It's like, and the types, it kind of gets stale, and like there's like forced drama and a lot of aggression. And so it was just like this, like people were just like awkward. Awkward and like silly, and then blocking, right? Having to like, they were taking up more space.
Ooh.
So it was hard for them to like maneuver around each other and stuff. So it's going to be awkward. It's going to be silly. We're going to feel very self-conscious in our new refrigerator suit. Our new homemade refrigerator costumes.
Well, that's an interesting aspect. I didn't even think about that. The taking up more space. That's right. We're all supposed to be, it's going back to the codependency thing, where part of the codependency stuff is like enmeshment of energy fields, when that's not necessarily what we want. We want our own energy field, and then like let in people as we both agree that it's a good idea to be healthily overlapping.
I think it's going to feel unwieldy too. Like, I think it's going to feel
like a refrigerator costume.
Yeah. Like, I think it's going to feel like, oh, this is, a bit much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like how would you feel walking around with a refrigerator costume? Like you feel very self-conscious and very like aware of how much space you're taking up, and how ludicrous. Yeah, you're
ludicrous. I have watched Spaceballs movie 800,000 times. It's one of my favorite movies ever, and they're like, ludicrous speed. They go like the psychedelic. Okay, I'm done. Anyway,
I just realized that this dream has a tie-in to the whole reason we were going to originally talk about dreams, which was like dreams and prophecies, and the fact that I've had prophetic dreams. And this dream actually ties back. There's an aspect of it that ties back to a prophetic dream that I had that I thought was going to come true this spring in 2021. But in that dream, because it took place around Persian New Year, because I was like, it had the feeling of like, oh, the pandemic's finally over and we can go back out. And I was going to meet people for a Persian meal. And one of the people was an Armenian friend who celebrates like Armenian New Year. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it was like connected to Persian New Year. And then there were lots of things that were like holding me up from being ready to go back, to this restaurant. But then on my way there, I was behind this big mall where the restaurant was. And then I lost my phone, and I knew it was going to be gone. Like, it was going to be 3 weeks before I could get a replacement. I was really stressed not to have it, but then I was trying to relax and be like, it's okay, I'll get it back. And then I suddenly just started developing all these superpowers where I could like jump off, like there was like an enclosure behind the building, and I could run and jump up, and then like I would be falling back down, but then I would turn it into a hover, and all like that type of level of superpower.
Yes.
I was able to like telepathically communicate with this friend. Anyway, so I had been having a series of prophetic dreams related to the pandemic at that point. So, and that one had that same feel. So when I had it, I was like, oh, okay. I'd heard other people talking about how we would maybe lose internet access and stuff. And so I was like, okay, I think that's actually going to happen. And that's what's going to allow us to kind of develop these things. Anyway, that's just repeated in this dream where because they were on this reality show, they didn't have any access to their phones or to the outside world. So that helped reality shift more because they weren't focused on it. But anyway, I don't know. I'm very hesitant to say anything definitive about my dreams for the collective, or like say like, yes, this is definitely a prophecy. But that's interesting to me that it came back again. Because when it didn't happen, I was like, oh, maybe we jumped off that timeline, and that's too crazy to like lose our phones. It's going to be too hectic and chaotic and whatever. But I've felt that one for a long time, like the losing of the phones. I actually also, usually when I write some things in a story, they happen. And I wrote a short story. Like I started a short story like way back in 2015 or 14 that had the premise that everything went down.
Wow.
So I don't know.
This is interesting because just last night, I was going to tell you this, not connected to the podcast, because I just thought it was funny because I think I unlocked a new guide. But because you talked about the losing of the phones and the internet thing, or like at least not being able to communicate in the dream, it was really crowded. And I was frantically trying to I had a bunch of bags. I grabbed my phone and I was like, why does this phone feel so much skinnier than the one I'm used to holding? But whatever, it's got to be my phone. And I just ran out into the crowd, and I was trying to pull up Google Maps to find my way back back to the friend's house that I was staying at because I was in a different city, and the map wasn't working the way I had set it up. I guess the map on this phone was working with a new update that was like, it would have made sense if you had gotten used to that update, but I was working with an older one because I hate updates. I don't ever understand them right away. And so I always just use the old one until I'm forced to use a new whatever. So I was so frustrated because this fucking map wasn't pulling up how I could get home. And I was like, what the shit is happening? And then I realized it wasn't actually my phone. I could see someone else's name at the top of the phone. I don't know where this is going, but it was like I couldn't use the technology that I was used to using. And so I was like, what the fuck? And then I was totally trying to run around, whatever. And then I looked up and I was at a bus stop that would literally take me directly to my friend's house. But the only reason I knew I was at a bus stop was I kind of looked up and I was like, wait, where does this bus go? And then this guide that I think I unlocked, which he was fucking hilarious. It was kind of, the attitude was like, oh, you finally showed up. Now we can go. And he was like, he pointed at the map that I hadn't been able to see, like a station always has a map of the bus lines or whatever. And he's pointing at this map. It literally takes you directly to her house. And just kind of smiling, like, is your head out of your ass now? Can we go? And I was like, so it was that whole thing of like, I didn't need real technology. I needed just like a sign or whatever. I didn't need my phone. I just needed to be at this fucking bus stop. And I was already there if I had just fucking looked up and seen, here's where you go. It's not that hard.
Right. Oh, you were already there.
Anyway.
Interesting symbolism.
That was an interesting technology one because it didn't work.
When did you have that?
Last night.
Okay. What I do think is that if there are enough of us that can go with the flow for that kind of timeline to happen, then it could present, like, I don't think they're going to give it to us if they're, and I think having our masculine and feminine energies integrated, which is what we're in the process of, brings us to that point where we feel ready to be in flow. We're like, we can go with the flow more, that inner control freak.
Yep.
At least simmering, not at a raging boil anymore, and can like tolerate really trippy societal stuff. So then if there's enough of us like that, then we can stay chill and anchor in, not turning into a total fucking shit show.
Yeah. Like
we can anchor in calm.
Yeah.
That will like ripple out and stuff. That's very interesting.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
You had that last night. Okay. I have chills.
Well, the reason I wanted to
just please let me get back safely from San Francisco first.
Yeah, it didn't.
I don't want to have to be on a fucking epic quest across thousands of miles.
Eventually the map, I was able to get it to work because I think because I'd let go of I think I was letting go of my freak out. So I was able to sort of calmly look at the phone because I was at this bus stop and my guide was like, is your head out of your ass? Can we go? And I was like, wait, I can look at my phone now and actually understand how it works so that I can see, oh, I'm only 4.5 miles away or whatever. So if it didn't go away completely, it might have been a lesson for me in like, get your head out of your ass.
Okay, I just want to now read the part from that dream because I was just trying to remember it, but I just want to read it in case there's any more syncs between our dream. Skip to the part where I'm at the strip mall, okay. Square red brick enclosure. I was still trying to get through everything I needed to do before getting to the Persian restaurant. I had a bunch of paperwork or books and research. Then I was running around the enclosure, running and jumping, easily leaping 10 feet into the air onto little brick ledges jutting out and leaping from one side to the other, up and down again. I could feel every jump and pull. I could easily hoist myself up by my arms, the brick under my fingers. There was sometimes a big round button. One point, allowed myself to fall down. And then I was just falling. I felt myself slow the fall in the air. So I could either just keep going in reverse and jump up again or land safely. The feeling in my body was so amazing and empowering and vivid and real. I think this is alien school too. It's just like what Jessa talks about with alien school. It's like, this is what you'll be able to do. I haven't had a lot of alien school encounters, but I'm just reading this. I'm like, oh, that's alien school. They're showing me what it feels like. Then I phoned my friend, or she was there. I was explaining to her excitedly. We were both excited about what this meant for us. And another friend, he had just had the same dream on the same day as me. Interesting. He was excited, also maybe confused or apprehensive. expansive. Then I realized I'd lost my phone and started panicking. There were shelves with lost and found on them, a surprising number of phones, but none of them were mine. They all seemed old and shitty too. That one just made me think, because you said your phone seemed different. And I was thinking I shouldn't touch them because in case of germs, right? The pandemic. I was terrified about losing my phone, where I'd left it, that I would never get it back. I was seeing myself order another one and it was going to take 3 weeks and I wouldn't be able to reach anyone. I had an image of having left it on the ground, or a lid, maybe a Tupperware lid. And I thought, oh, probably someone's taken it. I was frantically thinking about where it could be. And then at one point I was suddenly calm and knew I would found it, or that I had already found it. And there was a person chatting to me cheerily. It felt like a guide, but I didn't remember much about that connection to that, what they were saying the whole time. And once I knew I'd found my phone, I thought, oh, this is so silly of me to be so upset. If I can make myself levitate, I can bring my phone back to me. Wow. So many similarities to your dream.
The panic you felt about not having your phone, I had the same panic last night. I was like, my phone is lost. I'm not going to find it. It's too crowded. It's gone forever. And there was stuff that I wanted to keep on my phone. I was like, there's things on my phone that I want to, a bunch of information. And I was like, I knew it wasn't a big deal because I could obviously transfer by getting a new phone, but it was still that some of it was stuff that probably wouldn't transfer and I'd have to just recreate it. So even though it wasn't a big deal, I was like, God, the effort that I could save by just going to find my phone, but I knew I didn't have time because someone else was chasing me because they wanted their phone back because I had their phone. That makes me remember the dream I had. I already kind of told you about it a couple of weeks ago, but I went through it really, really fast. It was about what I thought was a timeline repair of sorts, where there was a guy with a metal arm and he was in a crowded marketplace of like soccer moms or whatever. And everyone was staring at him. And he was like, fine, you want me to tell you about this arm? Let me just go through the story. And so he started telling the story. But when he started telling the story, it was flashback. And I was logged into his body. So he was living out the story that he was telling, but it was in real time for me because I was living out his memory. And in that memory, he was trying to escape people who were going to give him this metal arm. And he was doing this crazy parkour shit where he was like, but it was me. I was in his body and we were climbing up walls and trees and like grabbing shit, jumping over buildings. And I could feel his surprise as my own surprise, but it was still his surprise. He was like, I don't remember doing this, being able to do this, like that kind of shit. And so it was like, as I was logged into his body doing this crazy gymnastic-y type parkour,
so like similar
shit. Yeah. It was like, I think the timeline was repairing at that point. We'd escaped the people who were chasing him to give him this metal arm. And we went off somewhere else. And I woke up before the dream was over, but it was like, I knew that metal arm piece thing was not going to actually happen anymore because we downloaded the skill of parkour on the fly.
Very interesting.
Felt really good too. I was like, oh wow, I'm really good.
That's exactly what I would have described what I was doing as parkour. It was like parkour stuff.
What a fascinating, I want to do this in real life. Oh,
which also, by the way, is what I think those cuckoo banana bonkers Russian kids are doing, is anchoring in those superpowers. You know, those ones that post videos and they're like at the top of like 1,000-foot story building and they're just like sitting out on a ledge or whatever. Those are little spider kids doing total future stuff.
I did not even put that together. That just Gandalf came in. Yep, that is the truth. I mean, it rings so true in my body.
So I had this dream originally in March of 2020. So I was really like, and which was actually, that was another clue. It was like right around the time of like Persian New Year, right, is when I had it in 2020. So then when that time came in 2021, I was like, okay. And I was in a huge period of expansion. And then that's when it was like, nope, feminine 70 earth energy. We're doing something else instead. In this little dream segment, I would like to just plug everybody, write down your dreams. Even if you think it's only just regurgitation of the subconscious, like what you went through, just write them down, because every time you write something down, the more pattern you will
find in this stuff. So like, yes, I write down a lot of dreams and I'm like, yeah, it was probably because of this happened and this happened yesterday and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Like, you'll start to realize that there are times that you dream where it feels different. And it doesn't feel like that subconscious stuff. It'll feel like, wait, I feel like I'm in a video game right now. Or, oh, wait, it feels like I'm logged into someone else's body right now. You'll just get different feelings and you'll be able, so the more you write down, even if you think it's stupid and annoying, you'll find the patterns that will help you pay attention to, like, you might not be doing like prophecy shit or whatever, but you will be giving yourself a lot of very important information. So just plugging writing a dream journal or whatever, even on your phone or like voice memos or whatever the fuck, just write them down. Even if you really would rather go back to sleep, just try writing them down. I struggle with that because I really am like, but I'm so tired. I just want to go back to sleep. I don't want to write this down, but I do it anyway. And I'm glad I do.
It's super helpful, and you'll exponentially increase your chance of like holding on to something really, really weird that would otherwise dissolve by the time you were trying to remember it.
Exactly. Dreams are so fucking helpful. Oh my God. Alrighty then. Well, let's just see. Okay. So before we pushed record, we were talking about how we've had a really rough last week. It's been a rough 2 weeks, but in particular, this past week has been a little bit much. And so we were kind of talking about why and all the things, and we weren't sure we were going to include it in the recording, but then it's kind of like we started talking and we're like, why are we not recording? So let's record. I was in the middle of telling a story about how Tuesday and Wednesday of this week have been particularly rough for me. I had moments of really just not wanting to play this game anymore. And I ended up on Wednesday sitting through that energy of just wanting to check out, and I had the records open, the Akashic records. Last time we recorded, I know I said something about not being able to hear my Akashic records when I opened them the last time. And since that time, I realized I actually got a new keeper. So that's why I wasn't able to hear as I was used to hearing the records, because I had a different energy signature. So I've been sitting with the records open and with my new keeper and just kind of chilling, having the energy working on me. And then I was having this moment of not wanting to be playing the game anymore. And then I just kind of moved through it because it had been a big buildup. This whole past couple of weeks have been not very fun. And Tuesday and Wednesday were sort of the culmination of that. Like, it felt the heaviest. And so I just moved through it again. Still, somehow I just kind of moved through each moment as best I can. And it happened to feel Wednesday evening that I was able to move that heavy, dense energy out of my chest area, and it felt like I could breathe again. And I was like, oh, well, at least I feel better, because I totally had a few meltdowns and cried a bunch during the day. So that probably helped release some of these stuck energies. As I was sitting in the meditation with my mala, I heard, "You've done it. It's the last time, never again. The transmutation is done and you've leveled up." And then in my mind's eye, I got this image of it was like a light blue, like when you play a game and you beat the level. I think I was seeing a Clash of Clans symbol. Like, I think that's what that was, because I used to play it a lot, whatever. So it was that blue star looking kind of thing where it has the level that you just unlocked, and it was level 25, and 2 and 5 equals 7 if you're into numerology. So I'm in a personal 7 year, which is very seeking. It's a very internal year for me, and where you're uncovering, it's a lot of ego death and shit like that. So you're uncovering a lot of your own personal beliefs and like figuring out what doesn't actually work for you anymore. And that's been my year, and it's been a little bit fucking rough. So I figured it was, 2 and 5 is 7, and that's what they were telling me. Or maybe it was level 25 of, I don't know how many levels. I'm not sure, but I saw the level 25. And then Canadian KK was like, wait, what happened during your 25th year? And I was thinking back, I was working in a law firm in Chicago, and I love living in Chicago. So it was a shitty job, but we had a really cool group of people. We were all pretty young, doing these dumb jobs, like out of college, And so we all had a lot of fun together, both at the office and outside the office. We'd go dancing, and like, it was just a really good time of life, even though the work itself was shitty. And I loved living in Chicago. So it was great. And I think that was I think it was my first full year of living in Chicago. I think I'd moved there when I was 24. So that was my 25th year. And then Canadian KK was like, ooh, interesting parallel. We're not sure where it's going, but whatever. So then that's when we started hitting record, because we're like, we should probably just record what we have been talking about. So now I'm going to let Canadian KK talk about their 25th year and see what is going to tie in, and if it unlocks any other memories that I need to share. So,
well, first off, while you were talking, my cat Festique just was like barfing and barfing in the background, which usually signals like a big purge is happening on multiple levels. It's very interesting. But no, she's okay. She's all right. And then like a siren went by. I was like,
oh my God.
But I was more thinking that the parallels weren't so much in the 25th year for me as what you were doing, which was you were working at a law firm. And I just find it interesting because we seem to have a lot of random parallels in our life, because my last officey real job was for a legal organization. It wasn't a law firm, but I was like worked with lawyers and law students. It was a nonprofit. Hey. And then the reason I was asking you about your 25th year was because for me, the cycle that I feel like I'm in the process of completing was I don't know if it's 17 was like the apex or nadir, more accurate to say of it, or that's when I started that cycle in this incarnation, in this lifetime. But for me, it's the 17th year, and 17 comes up as a number sync for me all the time. And in my 17th year, I was in a really big depression. And in Quebec, where I grew up, you graduate, you're like usually like 16, 17 when you graduate high school. And then we have this in-between thing called cégep that's 2 years, usually 2 years long. And then you go to university if that's your path. And so I didn't go straight into cégep. I just took a year off to spiral into deep depression. And during that year, I was trying to get my driver's license. And then I had a huge car accident where I was driving with my mom and lost the brakes in the winter, just flying down this hill, and like the car flipped, and like it was really, really bad. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of different timelines where I'm pretty sure I died in a lot of timelines or like really bad stuff. And instead, the one I ended up with was we walked away like completely unscathed, and everybody was like, whoa, what the fuck? But it really traumatized me and kind of put me into this cycle of not trusting myself. And like, I really blamed myself for the accident, even though nobody could figure out what had happened. It was just like the brakes weren't working and there wasn't not much you can do. Yeah, it just really made me feel incompetent. And then like a few months after that, I was walking up this mountain. And so Montreal is like built around this mountain, which is not a huge mountain, but it is a mountain. And you can like, circle your way out around the perimeter very gradually to the top. But I was with two friends and we decided to just go straight up. And it was just a few months after the accident. So it was like still very slick, cold, early spring Quebec weather. And we didn't have the right shoes or anything and so we were going up and I started to get really this huge like terror, fear, panic. And then I ended up getting stuck at this, speaking of levels, at this level where both my friends were able to they had to go out on this branch. Like we were really close to the top of the mountain. So it was very high up and they had to go out on this like tree trunk. And then there was this huge boulder and it was covered with ice, but there was this one little part that had snow that you could get a toehold on. And they used that and they both made it. And I just had a full on panic attack and the snow got eroded. So it was just slick. And then my friend, Rebecca was leaning over with her scarf. She's like, well, maybe we can pull you up. And then she fell 50 feet down a mountain. And I watched her body smash into rocks and tumble. Yeah. So my other friend and I, we were just screaming our heads up. She was also fine. She somehow turned it into this weird cartwheel. Anyway, this is timeline shit, right?
Yep.
But she was okay. In the end, I had to be rescued by these two men, which I found utterly humiliating. It's anyway. There's nothing I like less in the life than being rescued. And I was also just again super traumatized. Felt really guilty that had happened to my friend, and for several moments was pretty sure that she was dead. Yeah, and then I just kind of moved on from both those things in the time and didn't really address them or anything, but they just really stayed with me. at a subconscious level. And so as I've been realizing that this year really represents a lot of things for me, and now this week, just finally figuring out some new things about it, what I realized this week was because one of my friends had a dream where this is a completely different friend who doesn't really know all the details of all of those incidents, but he basically was with me as I reenacted them all. And he was like, you were like a phoenix. It's like you just came out unscathed, and then you were like erasing the trauma from your body, and you were like, it's done. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm I'm like really completing the cycle of everything that represented: lack of faith in myself, inertia, feeling like I can't go on, like I can't make it to the next thing in life. But also there was this other layer that revealed itself to me this week where I was like, oh, those are both really rapid descents. And you actually, KK, had just been talking to me about how it's not just the Atlantis flood, but there were multiple floods. And I feel very tied to the Atlantis story, which was a rapid descent. And then like there was another one, which we can get into the details. I don't really remember, but they were like trying to erase the karma, the people, the entities who were sort of semi-responsible for Atlantis. Anyway, it came into my consciousness that it wasn't just one time that humanity or whatever human like species on the planet has experienced like a super traumatic cataclysm, rapid descension.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I think I was there for both. And I think I played some kind of role that I have a lot of guilt, trauma, whatever around, especially because the mountain one is because Atlantis, they were attempting something. They were attempting to make Earth part of the intergalactic community. So they were kind of attempting an ascension. And then they didn't, we like foolhardily just went straight up the mountain, weren't prepared, took shortcut.
Yeah.
and then cataclysm. And my friend Rebecca very much also just represents Lemuria to me, like mentally. So it really, all the guilt and stuff. So I was like, holy shit. That same Tuesday, Wednesday period was when I felt this lifting of this heaviness that's just been with me, that we've talked about the heaviness of this 7D feminine earth energy, and this heaviness that has just been like so relentless. And I just felt it lifting out of my body. And I actually felt like I was like, is somebody doing some energy? It just like, I felt something. And then I was just feeling great again, just like more upbeat than I had in such a long time. And that lasted a couple of days. And, and then today I was just kind of feeling meh again. But I think that's exactly what we're talking about, is that's what it's like to do this. You just keep wanting to be like, oh, okay, now I have momentum again. And now I feel upbeat again. And now it's over. And now everything's great again. And it just has to keep filtering and filtering. Yeah. So that's why I was wondering if your 25 was like a clue, like 17 is for me, of like something significant for you. But it doesn't seem to be such a parallel.
Yeah, it was weird. It almost at first felt like a random number. Then of course my brain and the numerology shit, I was like, well, 2 and 5 makes 7. So blah. I don't know if it was supposed to mean 7 or if it was a random number. I haven't quite unpacked that yet, but you're right. Like I didn't think about looking at my 25th year. I'm trying to think if there is there's got to be something there. Well, there doesn't have to be, but I'm thinking it's worth exploring in like meditation or something, like what was going on in that. How did I feel in that period of life? Especially because I was having so much having fun. That's what I was doing. I was having fun and like going out dancing and being with people. It was the time that I learned how to salsa dance because of one of the girls that I worked with. She was super into going out dancing, and I was the person that she always invited out because I was willing to go out. No one else was really doing it. And I was like, fuck it, I'll learn how to dance. So we literally like signed up for lessons and went out to the clubs all the fucking time. I would be out till like 5 a.m. I don't do that.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
So it's like, welcome to level 25.
Maybe that's how it felt. Because in that Clash of Clans thing, it shows you what level you have unlocked and are about to play. So that 25 was like, okay, welcome to level 25. So I think you might be right. I guess at least right now, the first layer of it feels like we've been talking about this whole thing of like being joyful and having fun. And we're both kind of feeling like maybe we're sort of being called to finally be out of our hermit modes that we've been in for like 6 years or whatever at this point. And then like this whole year has been, just kidding, you're back in hermit mode. What are you talking about? You're not supposed to go out. And it's like, okay, what the fuck? And then the push and pull of I thought we were gonna, what? And I think our way of getting out right now is doing this podcast and doing our Instagram lives and stuff like that, where we're like not keeping our information to ourselves, hermit mode. We're like expressing it, even if we're not actually going out dancing or whatever the fuck, is fun. But yeah, that was the year. Those were the years that I was just like, I said yes to everything. Like before that, because I've been to clubs before, obviously like college and all that stuff, but like I would very much hold back. I was very uptight about, I don't want to, dance with this person because then that means I'm going to have to do whatever they want, like that whole strings attached thing. And so I would just say no to everything and just kind of sit there and be probably annoying for the people who wanted to have fun, I guess. I don't really know. But the 25th year and 26th year of my life, I never said no to anyone. I don't care what they look like. I didn't give a shit. If somebody asked me to dance, I was going to go dance. And I did every fucking time. And I had so much fun, even though I was like, a part of me was still really resistant because I didn't want to, have to, the whole strings attached thing. So that, even if it doesn't mean like, welcome to your 25th year again, or whatever, at least I'll think about it on a deeper level instead of being like, 2 + 5 = 7. Like, what?
Well, that's probably part of it too. I was just going to say actually that 25, 26 actually was also very similarly a very outgoing, experimental, fun period of my life too. So we do have that in common.
What did you do when you were 25?
So I would have been in university. And so I really enjoyed, first of all, my art classes in university were very expansive for me. And one of our art classes, it was a full year, Women in Fine Arts. And we ended up exhibiting in a gallery and it was very fun. And I was doing a lot of sexual based artwork. So I did it was called the Montreal Boys. It was erotic men pinup calendar. And then I also...
This is giving me life. Oh my God. Tell me more.
Yeah. And then I did an audio project as well, where I asked men friends and my partner at the time to like masturbate. And then I recorded myself listening to it with like all these lyrics. We got to use all this really cool recording equipment. So those ended up, that was really fun. And then I had this friend that I was introduced to, and she published this collectively put out pansexual smut zine. And so she ended up asking me to join her as like an editor curator. So during that period, that's what I was doing. We were having a blast. We would like do photo shoots and like written stuff. And it was like my dream. My dream is like those types of collaborations. I just love that stuff. So I was doing all sorts of things, and I was in a very dysfunctional relationship, but we had opened it up. And so I was exploring like bisexuality and just all sorts of stuff. And that's how I ended up meeting my current partner, who's just, a real blessing.
Awesome. So
it was a very expansive period, I would say, for me, like where I just was doing stuff, because I had a very introverted streak, not even just introverted, but just like social anxiety and shyness and not feeling like I fit in places. And so to be able to be in these like smaller collective groups where I actually felt very much like a part of the team, and also just had a lot of creative freedom and was able to just, bring things into being. And I was just, it was super, super fun.
That's amazing.
So that's always like when I think of what I want to get back to, it's like, something like that,
Yeah. Okay. This is definitely making me think more about that time period then. I think I'm really glad we're talking about this because I would not have put that together at all. So it's nice that you were able to unlock that part of my brain because I think that's important. And okay, so I guess we're in our 20-ish question segment for a moment because we haven't released, I can cut this out. We haven't released the Awakenings, but in that you said you were married, and in my inside, I was like, what? But it didn't feel like the moment to just squeal over being married because I was like, can we talk about you being married? I don't know why I thought you weren't married. I think maybe because when people use partner, or maybe because I have an idea of you as this person who is not in any type of box and you're just like, fuck it, I'll do whatever I want. And marriage just feels so very, not a bad thing, but it feels like a traditional kind of thing that I would not have expected you to do, and not in a bad way. And that's why I was squealing, because I was like, oh my God, we got to talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I have to say about being married. There is a Canada-America divide with partner. Like, partner is much more prevalent in Canada for people to use for their spouses and stuff. And in I think people sometimes in America, it's like really more like relegated to certain like communities and things, but it's more widespread here. But yeah, my partner, we've been married for a long time, and I don't know if I can think of anything interesting to say. Anyway.
I was thinking about how this year has been the absolute worst. I flashed back to my sophomore year in college, which was 2000. It was horrific. I do not know how I made it out alive. And it was pure masculine energy. Clearly looking back on it, I do this because there was literally no other option that I was willing or able to entertain because of my programming. I was a music major in college, but I added French as a major, and English was almost a third major, but I didn't quite make it. So it ended up being my minor, but I had so many English classes because I just loved taking them. So I was in class. If you're a music major in America, don't do it. Just don't do it. It is a major, at least where I was, and I've heard other people talk about this from other schools, so I know my school wasn't the only one. You end up taking classes that are all required to graduate. You cannot get out of them. They're either 0 credits or they're 1 credit. And usually credits mean like if it's a 3 credit class, it'll meet 3 times a week. If it's a 1 credit class, it'll meet once a week, or something like it's about that equivalent. If it's a 0 credit class, it doesn't count for fucking anything, but it's still required attendance. So I had all of these. Oh, and the 1 credit classes, a lot of the times, at least for me, it was like the 1 and 3 credits or whatever for the music stuff. They required, at least in my sophomore year, I had to do, it was like an attached lab that was extra work, but didn't count as credits. So not only was I in class for this 1 class 3 hours a week, I also had to spend about an equivalent 24 hours in the course of a semester, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually took me more than 24 hours. It was supposed to only take 24 hours, but because I was so bad at it, it took me about 36. Anyway, so I'm literally in a full-time motherfucking job equivalent of like work that I'm doing just in class, and that doesn't include homework. And so I had friends, I had friends in my French classes or whatever, and they were like, how are you only starting homework at 4 p.m.? I would literally never get anything. I would not be able to survive the school if I couldn't do homework, at noon or, earlier in the day. And I was like, I freaked out because I was like, okay, I'm a bad person. I can't even start homework before 4 p.m. Like, I was never sleeping. And I didn't realize at the time, because I was so fucking traumatized and sleep deprived, that I couldn't start homework until 4 p.m. because I was literally in classes most of the day. And I was freaking out about like doing all these fucking labs and like stuff that I couldn't fucking do. So my sophomore year I think I maybe got 3 hours of sleep every night. It was not great. It was absolutely, I didn't even think about quitting or changing my major, or I didn't do anything. I was like, I have no choice but to keep going. So I just kept going. I don't know how I made it through. But anyway, so looking back on that, it was a really bad motherfucking year. And it got better after that. Like my junior and senior years were like a lot less packed with those crazy things. We still had a lot of shit to do, but I was able to study abroad in France for a semester, and I really got a break, and I ended up having a really cool roommate situation. And obviously you're old enough to drink at that point in America. So I was like, woo, I actually ended up having some fun in those last 2 years. But my sophomore year, I was like, I might die, but never once registered that. I was numb. Anyway, it was a really long, boring fucking story about, I know you don't think it's boring, but anyway, there was a really long story to just be like, that up until now has been my bar for like, if it gets this bad, it's just, it cannot get as bad as it was my sophomore year, even though not every year has been peaches and roses, but like, it has never felt like that sophomore year. This motherfucking year has felt like a mountain work. but in a different way, and also in a better way, because even though I am really looking forward to not having to do a year like this over again, because I don't think it's ever going to be this bad, at least for us. Like, we're really in a bridge part of existence right now, and I just don't think it's always bad. It has been also extremely rewarding, because every time I get flattened and think I can't go on, I get these amazing insights about like the meaning of life, and I see infinity, and I get to meet Canadian KK and do a fucking podcast and learn things about myself that I was like, oh my God, I'm fucking awesome. I have never thought I was awesome. Like, I've had moments of being like, oh yeah, I'm pretty good. You know, I think I am fucking awesome. It's been a real shit year, but in a way that has made me feel like I'm turning into the diamond I was always supposed to be. So it's kind of like it was a rough year, because chipping away crusted on gunk that's been there for 40 years isn't painless, but it's worth it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't really know where I was going with that, other than the fact that these past 2 weeks, and in particular this past week, it was like 2 weeks ago was kind of, oh boy. And then this past week was like, oh fuck. And it's kind of felt like this past week has been sort of a microcosm of this year for me, which it just felt like another boss battle, but in a very graduation type way. I just pulled a card before we did this podcast, and one of the cards was graduation. And that's how it felt, like the unlock level 25, you've transmuted this for the final time, or what it felt like a boss battle that we still have shit to do, but I just feel like this was a major shifting point for both of us this week, where it was real fucking bad, and we moved through it and we transmuted it, and now we're lighter. And even if we're still feeling kind of crappy, because again, I don't feel like going out and running a marathon or going dancing or smiling at anyone other than Canadian KK right now. But I don't feel like perfect, but I definitely feel like shit has been chipped away and more of the shine is coming through, and it just feels better. And I don't know what's coming. Like, I don't have a sense of energy that might be coming in that makes it easier or is hard again, or what. I don't see future right now. I just know that in this moment, I feel a relief that is like, okay, cool. A big chunk is gone. Now you need to just rest and take care of your tender, beat up body and soul while the next thing kind of comes in. So
I was going to say, I always keep thinking this throughout this year back to how Jessa Reed, she described it in 2020. She was like, 2021 is going to be like a tall drink of water. And I kept being like, what, and now I'm like, oh, it's because she was in this energy in 2020 with her Lyme and stuff, and I can't even imagine that level. It's been I think that what you said about like running solely on masculine energy, I think that's been the interesting thing about this year is, and I'm probably already talked about this a bit, and like we'll keep talking about it, because it seems like my message that I just need to like share right now is just this whole thing of being introduced to our innate abilities, aka superpowers, through a spiritual awakening, and what that does to you if you're very used to operating in masculine energy, first and foremost, so doing, and then B, if you're a control freak who has a lot of fear of death and deeply rooted beliefs of like limitation and stuff. So essentially, I just feel like we kind of end up needing to be put into situations where we can't power through on our masculine energy. And we also have to surrender to things, have to accept things, even if we've been like getting so high off the supply of being able to hop timelines or manifest and stuff. It's if you're doing that from a place of aversion to the reality you're in, then it makes sense that it's like, no, you're going to end up being put, or like ultimately you're putting yourself into situations where you have to like face things and accept things so that you stop assigning so much value to experiences. And that feels like a real process. And I wouldn't say that I feel like I'm done with that by any stretch, but
me either.
This year has sure like walloped me with a lot of that in a big way. My partner's just been dealing with this chronic pain thing. And I I didn't even want to talk about it as a chronic pain issue for a long time, because I just kept thinking of it as this shoulder thing that was just going to get better, and just kept lingering and then getting worse. And then, oh, it's a bit better. And like, finally, yeah, like this past few months has been me just being like, oh shit, this is like a chronic pain issue. And like, and he's not like a spiritual person, so he's not particularly open to other like modalities beyond conventional medicine too. So in that respect, we're limited in our options as well, which, so it's just brought up a whole bunch of fear of like change, loss, and death for me, because whenever it's my partner, I go to the absolute worst. As you know, you heard me say that story about his spine. Like, we've played out this cycle so many times with mystery things with him, and it just seems to be like a real karmic pattern where I just go into total abject terror at whatever's happening with him, because I feel so powerless and helpless. So we've done it a lot, and this one was just this slow grind. And I was so caught up also with, before finally, it makes sense that I finally was hit me in August, September, because up until then I'd been distracting myself by being extremely enmeshed in all of my friends' lives to a very unhealthy point and having no boundaries. And then as soon as I was like, oh, I'm being super codependent with like all of my friends, I need to have some boundaries. And I started to put up boundaries. It was like, okay, so here's the stuff in your life that you haven't been paying attention to, because you were, you know, putting your attention on all the other pies in the world.
That's a really good point, because this whole, I think that's what I was also kind of going with. I was trying to get there and I never did. So thanks for bringing it back around with that whole, this year has felt so crazy. And in particular, this past, I think lunation cycle in general, but like it's a little bit longer, but this lunation cycle has been a doozy. And I think it's the nodes. The nodes,
explain
so
the nodes.
Like, the fucking lunar nodes being in Gemini and Sagittarius, which they've been in those two signs. So the south node is in Sagittarius, the north node is in Gemini, and we'll get into that in a minute. But like, so those nodes have been in those signs since May of 2020, and then motherfucking Chiron in Aries with the whole wounded healer making us deal with our codependency issues. Chiron has been in Aries since 2019, I think February of 2019. So that combination, especially, yes, Chiron has been in an Aries since 2019, but when the nodes moved into Gemini and Sagittarius and like all the other fucking planetary placements or whatever, but those in particular have felt like very much like we're revisiting our insecurities around feeling secure. So what we do for a living, how we make money, where are we in a safe home, you know, how do we take care of ourselves, that kind of shit, which has been up in the air with COVID because everyone's fucking losing their jobs. And, you know, it's been a serious fucking thing. So even if you still have a job, also, none of us want to make money doing the old masculine way where we're like 9 to 5 or, you know, 8 hours on a concrete floor as a retail employee, or like none of us want to do this shit anymore. So we're all like, okay, we have these jobs and we're still like kind of surviving, but it's not really surviving because we want to die. Like, you know, it's hard and we don't like this society. So again, with the planetary placements, I won't get into all of them, but we're literally reevaluating how we're operating as a society, in addition to our own codependency issues, in addition to our own wounding around karmic cycle shit, where we have given away our power and we're all trying to like figure out what is true for us. And we're used to looking outside of ourselves for those answers. And now we're being not forced, but invited sounds a little too pleasant. You know what I mean? Like, we're being invited to evolve in those ways of codependency. And it's fucking rough. So like all of these very deep survival fears are coming to the surface to be really looked at hard and transmuted. And transmuted just means, I don't know if we need to define transmuted. Transmuted is like you look at it and feel it. Like you go into the feeling of the fear of security, for example, and you don't run away from it and pack it in where you can't find it anymore. You're like, you cannot ignore this stuff anymore. So you're going to be put in situation after situation after situation until you really sit in the fear that you have around security. Again, for example, there's a bunch of other things, but security is a good one because that's been coming up with money and jobs and how we operate as a society and masculine energy versus feminine energy. So we're being forced to sit in it until we relax into it. And we're like, okay, what is the worst that could fucking happen? Play the tape through and just okay, surrender. And then once you've done that, that is the transmutation. It's like taking the darkness that you want to hide from and going into it until the darkness isn't scary anymore and it becomes light. And that's it. I made that sound easy and kind of flippant. It's not like a one and done kind of thing, because we're healing these wounds in a spiral. So we're going to keep coming back around to it, and we're going to keep revisiting the same issues until it has all been transmuted. So we've been transmuting layers of all this stuff. And then again, when we unlock the boss battles, we just get a little bit deeper into those same issues from a different angle. And then we just have to transmute all of it into light before we can build a new society that's actually functional for and supportive of all people instead of just a few. I have no idea if that even made any sense.
Totally did.
Anyway, so that's why this week has been this whole year. But yeah, this week felt like a boss fucking battle. I'm so fucking tired, KK.
I know. And I think that tiredness scares me. It's hard for me to relax into the tiredness after these things and just think that it's okay for me to be tired, because
yes,
I do have a lot of personal baggage around like things turning into inertia or becoming very hard to get myself out of, or just tiredness turning into just depression.
Yep.
And so, yeah, reminding myself that it's okay to be tired when you're doing nothing, but and also it's a pandemic. I very rarely allow myself to experience what it's like to be in the pandemic and to really like, oh yeah, and that on top of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, which is silly.
It's not silly. This is part of the transmutation. And I'm glad that you brought up the tiredness thing, because I knew there was something else I wanted to say about that, but I love that you keep reminding us about this tiredness, because I keep zooming past it because I'm like, oh, it's fine. No, I need to fucking sit in it, because I keep saying it's okay to have a bad day. But these bad days, quote unquote, like when you feel like you cannot get off the fucking couch and all you've done is sleep, and you're like, why the fuck am I still tired? And you feel worthless because you're supposed to be productive. And it's maybe, yeah, okay to have one bad day or maybe a couple, but you're expected to get over that and be productive again. You can't just sit there for weeks on end. So this huge wave of exhaustion is making us all panic, because that security issue keeps coming back up. We're like, well, we can't rest all the time because we have to fucking take care of ourselves. And it's like, no, you got to rest. And all of us are panicking because we have never operated like that. And so what do you do?
Which again, such a fundamental component of the feminine energy is the feeling of exhaustion and needing to rest so much. It's like, do less. And I think hearing Jessa talk about it, I kept putting it, I was like, well, she has Lyme. So of course she needs to rest all the time. Like she literally has Lyme. I'm here to tell you, if you are completely healthy and you need to rest all the time and you don't know how that's going to work or whatever, well, I'm just telling you that it's okay that you need to rest all the time. That's exactly what the energies are forcing on us and supporting and making every other avenue impossible. So try not to beat yourself up about it.
Right? Yeah. We're just not used to being able to operate in that energy. And that's partly why it's so hard, because we have never lived, our society does not operate on that energy. It operates on the pushing masculine, which it has for thousands and thousands of years. And so we're moving into an age where it's a balanced, I mean, it's not going to be just feminine where you're only resting, but it's going to be that balanced energy where you do a lot of resting. And then when you feel that energy to create or whatever, then you ride that wave. But it's not going to feel like it does now, where you can only have a couple bad days of resting and then you better get back up and be productive again. It's going to be like, maybe you really like when Mercury goes into retrograde, it goes into retrograde like 3 times a year. And so we're supposed to review and rest and, blah, blah, blah. So maybe the society, I don't know what it's going to look like, but it will accommodate us needing to maybe rest for 3 months, or maybe only have a couple of productive days in those 3 months and then not be productive. That's what I mean by the supportive.
I'm seizing up in fear at that. Oh. I'm like, how will I? You just realize the extent to which you depend on feelings of productiveness for your like well-being, which isn't bad either, but just to be like so scared
Survival fear. Yeah, that's what's coming up.
Yeah, or just even like not knowing how to enjoy yourself. You know, it's like not knowing how to be present in the moment unless you're like working on something. Yeah, that.
And that I'm really glad we get to be able to talk about this stuff. I spend a couple weeks feeling panicky, and then we record a podcast episode, and I'm like, oh right, I need to fucking relax. It's supposed to be like this. This is the energy coming online, and all the, you know, I need to just remind myself that it's okay. We are okay, but it's really hard when you don't feel okay. Don't gaslight yourself into thinking you're okay if you're not. It's just a lot, like intellectually, I understand that we're okay, but I don't feel it all the time in my body. I can on the days when I'm not expected to be productive, like the weekends or, you know, whatever, but it is hard getting through the week because I'm expected to be productive. And I'm like, I can't, I don't know what to do.
I've also was just doing a review of all, I was like, because I tend to have pretty good vacation luck. And even though in the past decade, I was like really depriving myself of any actual trips or vacations, when I went on them, they were really great. But even on vacation, I'll find something to get really disturbed internally by. That doesn't even have to necessarily have to do anything with the vacation itself. And that had never hit me in that way before. And I was like, man, I really don't feel at ease when everything's just going well. It just hit me in a deeper way, because I was like, well, at least, you know, on vacation, you're pretty good. Like you're able to relax and you're able to be in the moment. And I was like, wait a second. And you always this one thing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Totally.
like how to let go of that. Ooh, so I also just wanted to ask you, because I think this is interesting, because I feel like we all talk about feeling the energies now, but for me, it was a very big shift. And now it's been 2 years, so it just feels so normal. But for me to go from not having any sense of energy moving in my body, or like maybe the most bare minimum at the unconscious level idea, to like, I constantly feel huge things physically moving all the time, like multiple times a day. I feel stuff being pulled out. And I just wanted to ask you what it feels like for you, just to compare. Like, it's so interesting to me because they have different textures and like frequencies and stuff. So when you were, say this week, when you felt that thing coming, what did it physically feel like?
When things start to build up, that I know I start to feel the anxiety, my stomach starts to turn sour, you know, like that kind of shit. I know that that's the thing that I'm going to be, when I look back on it, I can see the start of the buildup of we're going to get a big chunk to transmute. But in the moment, it just feels like, man, I was okay the other day. Why do I feel like twisty tummy and like heaviness in my chest? And it's usually in my stomach, solar plexus area, where I'm like, oh God, it does not feel good in here. And then eventually, like a couple weeks or maybe a month or whatever will pass, and then it will clear. And so I'll be like, oh, I was being dump trucked or whatever. Anyway, even while that's building up though, I'll still have waves of like someone has shot adrenaline through my body. First of all, my heart beats extremely erratically these days. Like I've always had like a little bit of an arrhythmia to my heartbeat, like for my whole life, but it will only be every once in a while. It'll be like, I hardly ever notice it most of the time, honestly, because it's every once in a while I'll be like, oh, that was a weird heartbeat. And then I just keep going, but I definitely have a heart thing. This year, but in particular, the past few months, it is all the fucking time. And it's not every day necessarily, but it definitely happens multiple times a week. And I think it might be tied to the Schumann resonance and solar flares and shit, but I haven't really figured out when that happens yet, because it sometimes happens even when there's no solar flares. So I don't fucking know, but it will keep me awake at night. Like I will feel this lightness in me where it's like, something's been flushed out. It's like somebody has like whooshed up, and my whole body feels awake, and I will be like, oh my God, I need to run a marathon, but I'm still fucking tired. I really just want to fucking sleep, but I will be awake because my body is like, we've got energy now. It feels like, it just feels like a flushing, like a clean wave. I don't want to say water because it doesn't feel like water necessarily, but it kind of feels like it moves upward, like from my stomach up through my body. And then I'm like, All right, guys. Whew. But the last thing that I moved through me on Wednesday evening, that big heaviness, it felt like it was in my chest and that it was congestion. And so when I finally did move it out on Wednesday night / Thursday, I was like, holy shit, if it feels like my DNA sneezes. I don't know how to fucking because it's like clears out congestion. So I feel like I can breathe again.
I love that.
Not in my nose, it's in my body. Okay, I'm done now. My DNA sneezes. I think that's not gonna get any better than that one.
Yeah. The first time I felt it was an energy healer was doing work on me. And I was like, oh. And I felt a lot of like cool stuff coming in. And then I felt something pulling through me. But then for me, because I would get like a lot of pain. I used to get lots of pain in my body, including sciatica, including a lot of hip aches, a lot of joint stuff. Mm-hmm. So now when I get that, I can pull on it. Like I can pull on it and just feel it as this tugging thing. And I know I'm still doing this in a very masculine way. And I know there's a more effortless way to just dissolve it, but I kind of enjoy it because it's like popping a blackhead or pulling, pulling hair. Like it has that's very satisfying. So I'll like tug that feeling all the way down my leg and like out my foot. And so that's how energy blockages feel to me. It's often like usually it'll start as like a pain or discomfort or like tension. And then I'll be like, oh, there's something there. I've also had things that were like, oh, this is like malevolence in me, which felt really creepy. And like, I pull a lot of stuff out of the head and stuff in the head often feels like this really intense pressure bearing down from within the skull. And there's another thing with like the back body too. I heard people refer to the back body and I just picked it up. So I don't really know what that means. I feel it very much as a thing. And like we seem to do a lot of work in there in the back body. Like a lot of stuff passes through there and gets congested there. Mm-hmm. So whenever I actually feel into that, I almost see things like this kind of rectangular grid. I think that's as close as I get to seeing things on a grid level. I'm usually more fluidy than that. And then I like actually feel like chunks of stuff trying to move up, usually up through the body. And then they get stuck and then you have to like help them clear. And I'll feel them very much in the spinal it's like, and then it'll like be like moving up. And I just picture them like these big blocks and like either they have to be dissolved or whatever. Although just this week I was like, what's the mechanism that's causing this blockage not to be able to pass through? And it was showing that it was me constricting around it. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. But like, I very much just constantly feel they seem like blocks or chunks. They're sometimes pulling like gooey things that won't let go. Yeah. But sometimes they're very like you're scraping a windshield of ice or blocks of ice, like it has that kind of satisfying feeling to it too. And then like the really nice stuff coming in usually a lot of times feels very cool and like nice cold water, but inside the body, like releasing everywhere. And then sometimes it feels very warming and like a flush, like, woo.
That's a lot of how it feels for me too. And especially these past couple months, I've been feeling a lot of purging in my kidneys and ovary area. I know we've probably talked about this before, but it's been happening for so long that I'm like, might as well bring it up again. And I can tell that it's purging because it feels achy, but in a healing way. Like it's releasing infection, and the infection it's weird because like the achy part has a warmth to it, but at the same time, the purging itself has that cooling sensation. So that's interesting. And I think this shoulder, neck, whole right side of my body shit that I've been having this entire year, now that I've been doing a lot of this energy work in the past few months, it's not there anymore. I mean, I still have a little bit here and there, but I'm like, it's energetic.
Fuck out. Yeah. There was a period in 2019 and 2020 when I was at the beginning and I had a really high flying beginning for a while because I'd had so much pain in my body for so many years and it was just all gone. Like my body was, because I spent so much time at the computer writing, like I would have all those things associated with that and it was just gone. Like my body just felt light all the time. And then this year it's been like, oh, it's back. I can clear it out. But then it'll kind of almost immediately, it's like, nope, more densities coming in again. So
I love that you can do it yourself. I haven't quite gotten to the part where I can see it / feel it and then pull it out. The closest I get is like just sitting in the records. I'll leave the records open for days at a time, just sleeping with them open, just do not close them. I just keep them open. And that energy is able to pull out some of the sourness and the like in my stomach / solar plexus area, it feels kind of like you've crumpled up a piece of paper and then tried to flatten the paper. And so the paper still has wrinkles and like weirdness. And so it's like that pain of, okay, it's flat now, but there's still the wrinkles to sort of smooth out. And that is that ache. And so when I have the records open, it helps sort of take the edge off of it helps smooth it out in a way that feels less sour and crumply.
So interesting.
But that's
I think everybody has their own method too. Like, I think mine is very like a person tweezing out. Like, I don't think that's like everybody is that's gonna be the ideal method for them. I enjoy it. I am interested and looking forward to see more effortless, because I'll like right now I like have to go lie down for like 40 minutes to pull some shit out of my body. You know, I don't necessarily want to be doing that for the rest of my incarnation, but it's like, it's cool. It's cool for the time being.
Yeah. I definitely am looking forward to being able to heal or do those removals at some point, like whatever skill I can unlock to do that for myself. And that's what other healers are for. That's why we all get services from each other, because we all have different skills and we can all pull out different things in different ways and clear out stuff that we didn't even know was there. And it's not like I want to be completely autonomous, because it's really fun to work with other people. But at the same time, it'd be pretty cool to sort of as a maintenance kind of thing for myself to feel like if I'm feeling the pain, which I know is a blockage, let me just figure out how to get that out. Because I'm just excited to unlock whatever that skill is, because it'll come. Yours is cool. I love the way you do stuff. And having worked with you, I'm like, I think ever since I've been working with you, actually, that the individual healing portal session and then the group, Lemuria and Takas, both of those really accelerated the purge in the kidneys and ovaries for me. And it's just been, it just keeps going for however many months this has been. And it's awesome. Like, I've never had a healing session where like the kidneys and ovaries are purging. And I'm like, this feels very important. Like, it really needed to happen, because a lot has been stuck in there.
Yeah, our poor little, especially our poor tiny little ovaries hold so much.
As much as this has been, like, it's felt like a lot. I've never regretted a single minute of it, because I'm like, oh, thank fuck it's actually getting out of here, because I had no idea.
I know, I'm always the integration process is happening. Sorry. Okay, so you can't bring up having seen Infinity twice and then not describe it. So as our last thing on the episode, you gotta, you're right. Such a tease.
Right. Let's see. I'm going to just start talking and then you tell me what makes sense. Okay. All right. So I was lying in bed. Was I watching TV? I don't fucking know, but I was trying to just come down from the evening, and I was clearly integrating after this healing session. My mind was wandering, because my mind just fucking does. And then I heard the microcosm is in the macrocosm, but like echoing, like it just kept repeating, and not in an annoying way. It just was like, the microcosm is in the macrocosm. The microcosm is in the back. And then as it kept repeating, I saw the letter X, like a black letter X. And then it kind of got further away. And then another black letter X that was smaller kind of overlapped onto that X. And it just kept going. Like the X's just kept overlapping and overlapping. And then I saw, I think, the letter I, like a capital I, and it was doing the same thing, like just overlapping just into infinity. And then I guess my mind was sort of drawn into that because it was really cool looking. And I was like, what is going on? This is all in my mind's eye. And then as I just kept kind of sitting in the idea of the microcosm is in the macrocosm, because I hear those words and I get it, but I fucking suddenly felt it. It was that whole thing where when I get a download that big, it feels like any fear or doubt that ever thought about existing, Gandalf comes in and screams, "You shall not pass!" And the fears and doubts go back in time and don't even think about existing. Like, it just is in your bones. And you know it's truth. And even in those downloads, as deep as it felt, I was like, I bet I don't even have the whole, like, I feel like this is only a layer, but yet at the same time, I felt all of the layers at once. I just knew I hadn't quite uncovered them yet, but it was cool to feel it because I was like, oh my God, all the answers are inside of me. I don't have to search anymore, because my whole huge thing with my whole life has been, I can't learn enough. I never have enough answers. There's always something more. I'm like, yay, I learned this thing, but that's not good enough. I need more answers and more answers. And I just keep like, it's frustrating. And in this moment, there was no frustration. It was complete, utter peace, just relaxation on a cellular level that I don't even know if I can describe it, because it was so complete and total. And I was like, everything's okay. Everything is fucking okay. I already know everything. I don't have to search anymore. All the answers are inside me. And I had to forget what infinity felt like, what all answers existing all at once in every space and time in this one fucking moment that I know are all inside of me. I don't have to search anymore, because I had to make myself forget what this felt like to know everything that ever existed, ever will exist, or could exist. I had to forget that so that I could put myself in this fun little meat suit, in this fun sliver of a human existence, where I could play out a mystery game, that I could uncover what I already knew, but it felt like I was learning it for the first time. Infinity felt like the memory of doing something, but also doing it for the first time, all at the same time. And I just sat there with this beautiful feeling in my body. And as I was sitting there in this beautiful feeling, I heard the first sound in the universe that ever existed. And it was the exhale of this delighted laughter, just the most purest, joyful laughter. And that was the first sound in the universe. And that's what started creation. And creation is love, because I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make this make sense, but I knew that creation was love because we've seen timelines like the Zeta timeline, where they had to clone themselves because they lost fertility, because they disconnected from their emotional body, and love is an emotion. So that was a dead timeline. When you don't have emotions and you don't have love, it's dead. So love is creation, and love always wins. So in our human battles of, does good or evil always win, whatever, we go back and forth, like evil always win, no, love always wins, because it's literally a dead timeline not to have and operate completely out of love. So creation is just this complete, it never ends. And so in this spiral of the microcosm is in the macrocosm, and I know all the answers and everybody knows all the answers, we're just putting ourselves into these really fun mystery games of slivers of human existence, and also any other existences. We could live as trees or fucking spiders on a spider planet or whatever, there's endless possibilities to what we can do, but we limit ourselves purposefully to this one little slice so that we can re-experience something for the first time, even though we already know that we've experienced it, but it's with that joy of like genuine, oh my God, I've never experienced this, but yet I also know I've experienced this. And then in this infinity feeling, I could also see worlds being born, because again, creation is part of infinity. And as part of our ascension process, we're getting help from civilizations and species that have already ascended. And in turn, we are going to help other species that either we create or that have been created, that we're part of our plan is to help them. But basically, it's just like this continuous chain. Like, we're getting help from more ascended beings. And when we are ascended enough, we're going to be helping lesser ascended beings, and not in a hierarchy or like judgmental way. Just, it's all a journey, and we're all choosing to do this journey. And so all I could see was, it was like a ginormous spiral of just worlds being born and worlds being born and worlds being born. And it just never fucking ended. And sometimes the spiral was just pure white, bright light. And sometimes the spiral was rainbow colored and like colors I couldn't even describe. And it was just existing in this, it was in a black nothingness, but not in like a bad way. It was like, it's kind of like the void, where the void does not end. So creation doesn't end, and you can just keep creating and creating and creating. And it literally never ends. And the entire point of it is to just laugh and love and have fun. And yes, experience the pain and all the other things, because you can't have one without the other, but it's not a bad thing to have the pain. It's just it makes the joy even more fun anyway. That was my experience of infinity. And it gave me the peace of not chasing answers because they're already there. Even though I have that was a moment, obviously, and I'm going to be holding on to that moment, but I did have several weeks after that where I'm like, oh my God, I don't even want to be alive in this game anymore. Like, I'm not saying it cured all of my anxiety and depression and all the things, but it was knowing that that's inside of me is like, oh, okay. The game is fun. And I know that we're going into a good place because, again, love is the answer. And that's where that's what we're waking up to. A little bit of a bumpy ride along the way sometimes, but don't despair because we're going in an awesome ascended direction. We're not going into the dead timeline of becoming machines and disconnecting from our emotional bodies. So as hard as it is to reconnect with our emotions, and as hard as this feminine energy integration has been and is probably continuing to be, it's going to fucking be worth it because we're literally going into infinity. We never left it, but we're just remembering that we're part of it. It was very cool. So do KK's healing portal because they really unlocked infinity for me. And that's my infinity store.
It's so beautiful. Oh man.
Thank you for actually having me tell that story again, because I had lost that in myself the last few weeks and I was really feeling depressed. And now that you had me retell it, I was like, oh, it's okay. It's gonna be fine.
It's really so beautiful and lovely and uplifting and not so magical. Thank you for sharing.
Gonna be okay. We are okay. So that's what infinity feels like. And when we all describe it, because we all are going to, my sense was that we're all going to see that for ourselves, but it's going to look different for everyone, but we're still seeing the same infinity. So when you get to that moment where you see it or you've experienced it, or maybe you already have, it's going to be different and yet the same, which again, that motherfucking paradox, it's just, whew. And that was the other cool thing. It was like everything exists. Every truth exists. There is nobody that's wrong. No matter how much you disagree with whatever perspective is being shared with you, it still exists as a valid thing. Whew, boy, I am going to go smoke some weed.
Yeah. And on that note, so long, everybody.
Goodbye.